Welcome to Living in Color. I'm your host, Farah Nasser, and today's topic is controversial. It's about a word, a powerful word, the N-word. We're going to be talking today about the history of that word, the reclamation of the word by the Black community, and the crossover of the word into pop culture. Joining me now are Sean Leon, who is wearing the hat. Sean over here is a rapper and a director, and beside him we have Dalton Higgins, who is a publicist and an author. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us in this topic, which might be a debate because you both have opposing viewpoints when it comes to this specific word. Sean, I'd like to start with you. Tell me about how you feel about this word.
Well, for me, it was always a term of endearment and acceptance. I was very aware of its origin, where it comes from, and how it was used, and it being weaponized against people that look like me, my brothers and my sisters, to degrade us, to make us feel small, feel like we're less than. But for me, my first reaction, or my first introduction to the word was acceptance. I felt like here's somebody that I identify with, not only because they look like me, but because I'm aware that they are going through the same trials and tribulations that I have. So there's a certain kinship and acceptance within that word. So for me, I've always had a positive connotation with it overall.
We have to remember, though, that the Black community is not a monolith. This word is used to generally describe Black men, and we have the two of you here. Some in the community, and of course outside the community, think this powerful word is also dangerous. Dalton, I'll turn over to you.
Yeah, it's interesting. The point that Sean just made, I would like to say that there are certainly generational considerations to be made in any analysis of the N-word, whether it be the N-I-G-G-A, N-I-G-G-E-R, because my introduction to the word, but again, I'm over 35. I like to say that, generationally, people that are like over 35, 40, they're just like, no, you hear that word being uttered by a non-Black person, in particular, those are fighting words, When my introduction to the word was hearing it after basketball practice. I went to this school called Oakwood, great basketball team, and basically a bunch of drunken Caucasian males, complete morons, they uttered those words, that racial epithet. And we, I used to run track in high school and university. We pretty much wanted to chase them down. And and we know where that would have ended. So
right.
So again, it's interesting to hear, on the different ends of the spectrum. Yeah, but it's a generational thing for sure. And I also understand why people of this generation use it, because they're rap heroes. Sean is a very well-respected rapper. A lot of our rap heroes are using it, right? Drake uses it, Cardi B, pretty much everybody uses the term. So I can understand how the normalization of it. Yeah.
I'm also over 35, and I heard a word "packy" when I was young. Were you ever the victim of a racial slur?
Absolutely.
With that word?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, because I have been, that's really why, for me, I'm not really comfortable with anybody that doesn't look like me or my sisters using the word. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like this is ours, and it was used against us, and then we reclaimed it, and we took this thing that was being weaponized against us, and we were able to, for me, my people, use it, again, in a positive manner. I think, of course, within my community, there's gonna be differing viewpoints and perspectives on the word, and people have gone through certain things that I haven't actually had to have experienced.
Right.
At least to a certain extent. When I talk to my grandmother, I don't address her as my nigga because,
she's your grandma.
She's had a completely different come up than I have. So it's like, again, I feel like it's appropriate in certain spaces, but I don't just go around assuming every single Black person that I come into contact with is my nigga. It's like it requires a certain comfort and understanding, I think, between the parties involved.
Let's talk. You wrote a book 10 years ago about hip-hop culture, and one of the chapters in that book is about the N-word. You did research on the N-word. Tell me about the history of that word itself.
Yeah, well, Sean is talking about something that's very interesting. Is that the over 35 crowd, they may come off sounding like, old fogies, just completely detached from the contemporary or youth culture of today. And he's talking about something we call semantic inversion. And it's this idea of sort of remixing a word, declawing it, repurposing it for today's use. So today, in our culture today, it is a term of endearment amongst this generation now, millennials, generation Y and Z. And now, the interesting thing we talk about hip hop culture, so you have like an icon like Tupac Shakur, for example, and what made him brilliant is he actually took the N-I-G-G-A, N-I-G-G-E-R, and he remixed it to mean, he took the acronym and remixed it to mean, never ignorant getting goals accomplished. Okay, nigga, never ignorant getting goals accomplished, right? So the semantic inversion, that situation is real. Now, that being said, again, being a little bit of a student of human history, you're going to see a lot of older folk like myself and older. You have an organization called the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Peoples, and they actually, maybe about 12 years ago, tried to ban the word. So they did they staged this whole mock burial, and we want to ban the word. A lot of young people like Sean Leon and your generation are kind of like, what are these old people talking about? Like, it's being used everywhere by most, people, racialized community members, black people, and rappers in particular. So there has to be some sort of comfortable medium here. Now, when I talk about, we talk about human history again. I sometimes like to remind, it's important to have a two-way dialogue amongst youth and elders and Generation X types like myself, because again, when we hear the word, it recalls, when mostly black men are being lynched, hung in trees. This is the word that's being uttered, that's being, hailed in their direction. It's the N-word. When the black women are being raped, transatlantic slave trade, the Middle Passage. These are the words that racist whites are using in the American South, you see? So this is where, what Sean said, this idea of using it, amongst your grandmother, or, if you go to church or a house of worship, are you going to use it at church, are you going to use it in the mosque? Are you going to use it, if you go to school with your teachers around, professors, are you going to use this language? Most likely not, right? So it's a very complex and contradictory kind of situation.
Do you feel like it's a problem that it's being weaponized? Like, does that not concern you?
Oh, of course.
Right.
I mean, personally, I'm at a point now where if somebody runs up on me and they call me that and they're using it in a negative way, I'm not sure I would react to it. I think it would depend on how I feel that day. I think I'm past the point where words can affect me deeply like that. But again, that's not to be insensitive to the history of it, as well as my people that have come before me and had to have suffered, by the hands of it.
How do you feel about kids hearing this word from your community?
Well,
Don't you think that's problematic?
Well, black culture is number one. It's number one. It's the most mimicked. It's the most commercialized. It's the one making the most money. So within that culture, I feel like, again, us within the community that want to use that word have the right to use that word. I think, how it's being heard and interpreted is going to vary based off situation to situation. Because as Dalton said, he remembers being in the gym after basketball practice and it being weaponized against him. I also remember being in some sort of sports type arena, but it wasn't used in a way to make me feel bad. It was a way to make me feel almost accepted within the people that I was with at the time. Those were my brothers. Those are people that I felt safe with. Those are people that, again, understood me just deeper than a lot of my other peers would, just because of, racial barriers.
So why isn't owning it a positive for the younger generation?
Well, yeah. Well, just to answer that question, because I have two teenagers, and from my frame of reference or point of view, there's no benefit in my kids using it, and what I try to teach them and hope they are listening. I know they are listening. Is there are consequences to using the word. So, for example, global television, Farah Nasser, can you use the word amongst colleagues? No. There are consequences to using it in the public sphere, in the real world. So that's what I tell my kids.
I mean, I know you think in terms of the hip hop culture, and in your music you use it, but doesn't that juxtapose with what, everybody else does? What's kind of the norm out there? Like you said, we would never use it in broadcasting. We're using it now in a certain context.
I think basically, like, giving into that censorship is almost conceding into every other group and saying that, okay, you guys have an issue with us saying it because you guys can't say it as well, so we'll agree to not say it anymore. And I feel like that's almost a weakness. Like, I personally would never do that. I would never give up my right to say that word, to say nigga, because white people everywhere can't say it. or because people are confused on whether or not they're allowed to say what it actually means because they're so wrapped up in pop culture. I think that's the thing. I think, like, you know, we listen to rap the most. It's the most streamed on streaming services. It's the most commercialized. You know, it's like every McDonald's commercial or whatever corporation, they got elements of hip hop to sell their product, right? And I think because people are wrapped up into it every single day, they're forgetting that they're not black. That's why for me it's so important, because I'm like, no, I can't say this, and this is like reminding me to that, you know, this is mine, and like we reclaim that. And the only reason why you want to say it is because we've reclaimed it. It's because we've made it to be this thing that for us is, again, magical. For me, it's a term of endearment, and you want that. And you might even have a genuine love for me. You might not be black and have genuine love for me. You could be obsessed with the culture. You could listen to rap all day. You could change the way you dress. You could change the way you pronounce and enunciate your words because you're so obsessed with black culture just globally. But that still doesn't make you black. Nothing will make you black.
Right.
And that's what's important to me, like getting that across. And again, like, you know, it's difficult because, you know, I put it in songs and then I perform. My crowds are, you know, there's a mixture of races within the crowds, but there are obviously a lot of, you know, white people, you know, Asian people, there are all types of people. And I can't honestly say that while I'm performing and I'm performing these words that I'm looking in the crowd making sure
Like, you can sing along to my songs, but don't say that word.
Each person is saying, you know, at the same time, you know, like I can't censor people in the crowd, but if somebody that looks like me in the crowd hears the wrong person saying it and then that person gets a punch in the mouth, well then maybe they'll learn their lesson. Maybe next time they won't say it.
Thank you for watching Living in Color. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have an idea for a future Living in Color episode, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them in the comment section.